like, wait, we can
Sorry,
have
I always
more.
forget to record. Are we okay to record, everybody? Okay, sorry to cut you off, Dominic, but I liked what you were talking about, and so I just wanted to get it on. Welcome to Holistic Systems Meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, well, so I've been speaking with like a lot of leaders of different organizations in the movement, and like they reiterate a lot of what I've been sensing. They're like, yeah, there are so many like overlapping projects that you just wish that they were like coordinated. And in me and Rob's dialogue, this notion of sophistication and coordination came up of like, okay, there's like this big being of like all these people and organizations that are like they're yearning for the same transformative properties, and how does that become more coordinated? And what the founder and executive director of the Commons Engine and the just someone who's very deep in alt currency design, um, what she shared with me is that there's this notion of an art object that can unify lots of different movements, like having these art objects which are they're like gravitational thematics that people all care about and want to contribute to. And so I was sharing with Rob with like with all of this sort of diffusiveness, like how do we get really practical art objects to practice coordination between all of these different organizations and stuff? And like when I say all these organizations, I mean like if you look in the New World Movement, you'll find like 20 different uh like little like organizations and social medias and websites that are doing like media production. So the question is like, what if like all of that energy was contributing to a media production that was like greater than itself or greater than a bunch of small little parts? So the use of the art object, it came up with Rob was sharing that he recently was brought into Haifa, which is a DAO, which they offer DAO making for people who want to be DAOs, right, Rob?
Yeah,
That's that's what they do.
it's yeah, that's what they're offering, and then also right within that, like the platform for a DAO ecosystem, right? So larger the DAO for each DAO, each group, but then the connection to the larger ecosystem.
So he just was taken on for a position at Haifa to help them create media so that people can have more of a digestible and comprehensive experience entering the DAO landscape, and media which highlights Haifa's position in the world of DAO. What's interesting about that is Basil with me recently shared the same request. He was saying, oh, it would be marvelous if we had somebody doing more interviews and meetings and media based on what is the state of the DAO. And that's a term that he likes, the state of the DAO. And I was sitting there speaking with Rob, and I'm like, well, geez, like I actually mentioned to Basil that we should make a micro task force dedicated to researching the state of the DAO, like precisely in this setting. And then we got a bit more structural, and we're like, okay, there's like three organizations involved here. One is Haifa, who have made the specific request to Rob, hey, can you make this media for us? Can you get this information out there? There's Better Worlds, which is Basil is a co-founder, co-creator of, and they are the perfect hosting platform for this media to be produced and brought through. I'm building a research institute which is wanting to invest in research like this. So I was like, what would be, yeah, Basil, comment, question thing? That's on your hand.
Oh, I was just sorry. I was just doing your research institute, which is
Oh,
cute.
cool, cool. So I was like saying to Rob, like, wait, so what's like this is a great example of the structure of how the art object can help us all. The If we bring the little team in and I get to say, oh, this team was housed in the New World Institute, we did the research, we produced a position paper. Better Worlds gets like a bunch of media projects that it can release about that's substantiated by the research base. Like all of the media gets posted through Better Worlds, whether they're interviews and like we also talked about, right? Like we feature Haifa. So we would have articles and content about Haifa or other DAOs. And then for Rob and Haifa, what happens in this process is rather than Haifa producing media about themselves and DAOs, which is obviously bias, we have two sort of separate like organizations or parties that did, unbiased research and produced media that featured Haifa. So like, I mean, like obviously like we're creating it together. So it really has like a group feeling and it's like teamwork, but like it also has these it kind of grows the ethos of all of the different components and it makes the project bigger and have more benefits for more people. But then Basil, this is the kicker too. I was mentioning, okay, then there's GaiaNet. One of the parts about these art objects is what if because GaiaNet's basically made a map of all of the nodes in the New World Network. They have a huge map of the whole thing. What if at the same moment as the media was getting released through Better Worlds, all of the nodes in the New World Network reposted it and added it and did all of the backlinking and featuring. So there's like a really intentional time-filled pop of the whole New World movement that like does it together, and it's directed at Haifa. And then there's obviously players like Barbara Lehman and the Weave, who would then in volume 4 feature an article about State of the DAO in their journal as like, yeah, this technical work produced by the Institute, blah, blah. And so it creates like this incredibly comprehensive web, really based on teamwork and collaboration, and then strategy. So that was like the gist of it.
Yeah. Thank you. That was really well explained. Thanks, Dominic. Yeah, and Basil.
So let me give so Dom, we like you said in your last email, which I'm still getting through. I've been slammed on this Black Towns revival thing this past 5 days. But so to give you background, the concept for the State of the DAO came up in 2020 when I first went into Haifa, and I was working with like Nyla Fai, who was then running their brand and outreach and orientation and brand circle and marketing circle. And so I went into Haifa to support them and specifically to support her. She was the one that created the name for D Studio, which is a prototyping DAO on Haifa, and then Alpha, which is when I met Holistic Systems. Better Worlds evolved out of Seeds Live. So I had started Seeds Live to sort of start to tell the story of this whole world of this regenerative thing, but it was too centric. It was too seed centric, and I was like, we need to go beyond this sort of Haifa seeds narrow, because like you say, that would be a little too biased. So I was holding that Seeds Live vision, and then when Michael Mitchell came through Daniel Swid, who's been my tech lead through all of this, to help create Building Better Worlds as an event series, I quickly merged that sort of vision for Seeds Live into Better Worlds with a visionary completely outside of the Haifa Seeds universe, to sort of launch Better Worlds with the intent that would hopefully serve a role to tell the story of not just Haifa and Seeds, but all of the organizations and efforts around the world. And the State of the DAO, I was just holding for a long time, waiting for the DAOs to be ready to tell the story. And it's barely there, but it's good to sort of start to capture the state of the greater DAO, which is all of humanity plus and the nature and ecosystem, in a way. But for that, it would need the research entity. And so that's why I was really excited when I met you with your vision for the research entity, hopefully that could be a trusted source of information gather and digest, and then we like release it through things like the State of the DAO and other outlets. And so Elle, who is gone now, I was working with her this past weekend, and her and some others I'm looking at to be on-screen talent, to be like reporters, and so but it is going to take that sort of network team, you know, D Studio, working with Dominic, to then execute the final programming, state of the DAO or otherwise, to then release through Better Worlds and other channels. So so this has been brewing for a long time, but I have a lot of patience, and I'm always just sort of waiting to see who steps up, and then support them to like help with the manifestation. That's part of the cultivation. Which seeds sprout, you know, like, okay, that one sprouted. Let's give it nutrients. So that's where we're at. So it would be amazing to start to you know, get this this program, the State of the DAO. I think it could be I think we could get a good position, you know, in the Web3 world, with this show. So yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Basil. I know it's, but I didn't actually think of this. This didn't pop in yesterday when I was talking to Dominic, but when you were talking now, I started to laugh because this was, I don't know, I mean, almost maybe a year ago, that Basil, when you and I met and started talking, and then the first time I think it was the first time we were talking, but there was like, it was the night before, and I couldn't, like, I was writing one of my emails, you know, and this title kept popping in, you know, and it was the State of the DAO, the State of the DAO. It kept popping in. I'm like, well, why is that, you know? And I wrote that down, you know, down on a note or whatever. And then we talked, and he's like, yeah, I wouldn't do this thing, the State of the DAO. And I'm like, why was that popping in, right? And I took a little picture of the note, you know, just for proof that I had actually done that before. So it's just interesting how, you know, something is, you know, is coming through, right? That's just like bigger than one, you know, one person or one entity, you know, but that's right. And I appreciate your patience, you know, right? Because sometimes, you know, I think that's what it takes. But if there's something that wants to be told, you know, hopefully it can come through, you know. And yeah, so I'd love to see it come through now, and maybe just, you know, right, exactly, waiting for the right pieces, you know.
It really, all that it required for me to then like be the producer and execute, was who's going to show up to do the research, who's going to like gather the intel, and sort of, yeah, you know, who's gonna step up. So yeah, so if Dominic's team and Dominic can like help catalyze that sort of core, you know, research and development team, then we can layer on our production teams and stuff, and really get this pilot, and then set up a meeting with Troy Mork, who you know has been, you know, part of the Hypha Seeds thing since the very beginning, and he's our D Studio creative director. He's really good at like, you know, pulling together the look and feel of things, and a creative direction for then our designers and artists to then like, you know, manifest. So so we should set up that meeting at some point soon, so he can start to spit out back like logo ideas and just directional ideas for us to kind of get through the creative process for the brand identity for the show. That would be great to do in the near term.
Yeah.
Yeah, at one point I saw Alex get excited while we were talking, and I just want to see if there's anything you wanted to add or mention. I don't know if that was accurate.
Oh, I don't know in which moment you catch my excitement.
I don't know. I was just at some point. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, if you had something to contribute, you know, doors open.
There was probably some thought, but it passed.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I would say, Basil and Rob, like, I would say one of the things to really kickstart this would be like, okay, who are the researchers that want to do this? Who are the people that are, and Rob's already on the project, so you're in since you're signed up to do it. But I'm really curious, and like I have a contact, but they wouldn't be a specialist in DAO, and I would say that your networks will have more DAO specialists, which I'd like to tap. So I would say think about like what's that short list of like people you'd recommend to contribute to this research. just because you're deeper than myself. And that I would say that like if we have like sort of a chronology of like, okay, if if the research is stimulated and set forth and released, then the media grows out of that. And then we would design the campaign about like the strategic launch with the whole network. I'm I'm just saying the first domino would then be like, okay, who are those specialists? And like really vanguardist people, but also technical, technical pros, people who care about the authenticity and the profundity of the actual research in detail.
Yeah, I think it's such a resource, to for you to come in this realm and in this way, Dominic, because right, like like I said, is this past weekend I started digging in. I'm like, all right, now I've got to like get my spreadsheet and start, logging all the DAOs and all the platforms and all the, this, and there's, there's a lot to it, so to have that be facilitated, and a team of people be facilitated, it's amazing. Yeah. Well, I'd love to, Basil or Dominic, anything else like at this time on that subject?
Maybe we should grab another just focused meeting, and bring in like some of the team, like Troy and maybe Nyla, who was there from the beginning, and sort of get this, because her vision was to make it like an anchored like 1970s or 1960s style set show with like that look for like the anchor desk. So I've been holding that for a long time too, so that might still be the way to make it more endearing and approachable. But yeah, so let's offline this, I guess, for a different focus session on that program.
Yeah.
And as far as your new position in Haifa, yeah, I mean that's why the studio was created, was because Haifa was not set up to be able to be its own brand agency, marketing agency, and so we needed a related, immersed entity, construct. So if HSC and D Studio can start to prove this sort of multi-DAO framework that it works, that we can have these like functionalities, marketing, production, etc., working together to sort of showcase the power, because that's also part of the proof in the pudding, of this DAO reality. So it's like it's not just about us telling the story, it's about us like practicing the way as well. So it's authentic what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And this is another thing, to meet about, but as I was pondering over all of this and things were, sort of locking into place, and part of the role is to create content. And so, these days, part of creating content is creating video. And so I'm like, okay, thinking, all right, well, what are the videos? How are we going to, how are we going to do that? What, right. And so, of course, Basil, you're the first person who's coming in as far as like, okay, you'd be the first person I would talk to as far as how to get extra help and how to coordinate that, right? And what people are other than just me, sort of whatever, taking Zoom footage and making clips, things like that. So and along with that, just as you're saying, right, is thinking about like this is another chance. And I think right in the beta version of Haifa, there's another chance for us to say, oh, okay, now we've got a project. Now how can we like run it through the DAO? How can we run it through here? Because I mean, that's to me, that's like that's just perfect. That's almost what needs to happen, right? You know, is if we're doing, you know, if we're doing this collaboration on the state of the DAO, right, then it's not that we're only, you know, shining light on it, but we're, you know, we're part of it. So all of that,
Yeah,
very cool.
so I was mentioning with maybe we do the like the management of the thing through holistic systems, and that's like another level of the synergy. Is like it's run on the holistic systems platform. Be kind of great. Another case study and such.
That's been the goal from the beginning. Even like a year ago, Rob and I were trying to like manually hack like DAO to DAO, like coordination between DStudio and Holistic Systems, so that like Holistic Systems could handle like the account, you know, coming in, and like the needs, you know, like the agency, you know, and then it has its in-house, you know, production entities or whatever to like assign, and then we, you know, then we're you know, we're moving like Holistic Systems co-op tokens, DStudio Honey tokens. We're getting Haifa tokens, you know, like to like make it all so we can start to show that pattern, you know, because that really will be like the part of the shiny story that would then go into like Weave or something, you know, like here's what, you know, they're doing to prove the way that this collaborative, you know, ecosystem can work with the tokenomics and everything.
Yeah, and that's specifically like what, you know, like priority number one, you know, of what you know wants to happen within Haifa now, you know, is to actually get people going in the DAO and, you know, prove the proof of concept, you know, and get some use cases going. So
I also, you know, I really see like we have the capacity to make this information intelligible for like governments and corporations. Like really like make it a highly relevant for everyone to, because you know, I think like the evolution and consciousness society, like it happens at all the levels. And like by adding decentralization into your life, it's like starting to practice yoga. It's just changed your life. Game over, like different thing. So pranayama, asana. Oof.
We
Yeah.
learn to breathe together. Alex, what I'm curious what your background or like, you know, offering skill sets, you know, what you bring to the table technically or on the professional level.
So, wow, you have set up an interesting context, and I have to say that it's a bit like hearing Chinese and trying to pick up few words here and there. I actually, I'm not fluent in this technology. DAO tokens is totally, I would say, new to me. I started to check all these things where you were talking, like what is this new world movement, better world. Haifa, I've already discovered. Robert has shown me this link. So I would say that I'm trying to get a grasp on a big picture as of now. And basically, this is one of my main skills, to see the big picture of things. And basically what I do is called pre-branding. And this is a concept that came to me by itself. I'm sometimes laughing that I'm not even doing anything. It's just flowing through me. And this concept is about somehow extracting a brand entity. I like to call it like that because I think brands are some sort of energetical beings. And as soon as there is some brand, it can be a personal brand of a brand creator or some group of people that want to create a brand. It is equipped with brand factors, and those we can extract this vision and put those brand factors into place. And in this way, we can move forward with much more clarity. And it's my role to tap into the highest creative calling of the brand creators, and also to show them that they already know all the answers. So as I'm saying, I'm not even here. And yeah, so I hope that explains a little bit my background. I'm actually passionate about IT, and I even studied computer science for a moment, but I've been so much out of this. I would say I've never worked in any corporate business, and I've mostly surrounded myself with creatives, freelancers, artists, musicians, freaks, light workers, whatever. Yeah. So this is rather my environment.
Well, that's why we're creating this DAO framework so that we the freaks, the freelancers can still be able to coordinate together and gain equity in something greater than ourselves together without working for anyone, just ourselves, you know, and that's for me, that was the final sort of reforming of the corporate structures into these sort of cooperative structures, you know, where we can just focus on like our passions and like what we're happy doing, and then learn how to like put value on that and coordinate it with everyone else. So yeah, so you don't need to understand the nuts and bolts of the tech. It's like the early days of the internet. Like that stuff is so foreign even to me, and to most of us. That's where we're at, and that's where Haifa is at, is working on those sort of on that the code with the smart contracts and the different layers of this Web3 code. Our job is, or I feel like part of our job for the non-techies, for the mothers, the grandmothers, the sages, the wisdom keepers from all of the different ancestries, is to be able to have the position to guide the developers. And so for me, I chose Haifa because Haifa is, even though it's still very like male dominant in the core, on the techie side, all of those human male entities are for the most part quite balanced in the feminine, and accepting and receptive to the mother, to the nature guidance. And it's just we need to develop our new world orders, our new world operating systems with that natural wisdom. Because if we aren't intentional about bringing in the grandmothers and the grandfathers and the children into the decision-making process, then the technology we end up with is just like another Salesforce, another powerful tool like Facebook or Amazon, and those tools are very cold and just completely discount the human needs, and we need to make sure that doesn't happen with this new operating system we're collaboratively developing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, on that point too, it got me so excited what you were like closing off there with. I was just like, yeah, that's the sweet spot. And like, you know, what we're discussing, right, about like that new world technologies ordering whatnot, like there's a very profound observation we need to make when we look at what happened in the past 500 years, which like ecological discordance for sure began to rupture in like 15 to 1600. And there's a very clear moment there where modern society labels itself modern and says, the past, we will throw that knowledge out the window. And this is literally what Rene Descartes said, right? Cogito ergo sum. We will reject. I can only trust my mind. We're going to make a new foundation called science. Scientific revolution begins then. And it's going to be a new dossier of knowledge, which will found society on entirely. And I think that moment was not, I think science is incredible. It's taught us a lot of mastery and like brilliance, but it's inauthentic to imagine that that was not predicated upon big history. I'm not talking just 8,000 years, I'm talking like 15 billion. I mean, genetic code. And so like really, I think the question we talk about, like, you know, the culture of global civilization, when we, you know, ancestral future, means that we're not raising people of ignorance, but people who are aware of everything that they come from, and they're still not suffocated or by tradition and history, which is that's novel, and you know it's wonderful, and it's a time of communion of like everything that we are. So I see, you know, for it's an organizational thing, but it's very much so like, you know, when we talk about ecology, the keys to cultivating an ecological civilization comes with those who are the case study examples. If you look at the research, indigenous populations simply scientifically correlate to higher amounts of land that is conserved and preserved. Modern society disproportionately has well, they're called intact forest landscapes. We have destroyed them and reduced them. So it's like very obvious. Okay, who knows how to live ecologically? Let's learn how to do it from them. Like we quite evidently, based on the science, have lost that capacity. And so that's where that ancestral future is so beautiful. And I don't think they need to be antagonistic. And Alex, what you were speaking to with the brand, because something greater than the individuals, it's so in line with like what Hegel wrote about with the Folkgeist. Are you German, by the way? Are you like from Germany or?
No, I live in Germany, but I'm Polish.
Okay, gotcha. I'm from the south of Germany, from Munich, München. Yeah, but no, it's such a beautiful like the you know that entity I consider synergy, right? That thing that the people all come together and they become something different. It's like this value that's like it's like their transcendental unity. That's what you work with. I think it's amazing. It's how that's where evolution comes from. That's the evolution spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where evolution comes from. Beautiful.
May I ask
I'm wondering. Oh, go ahead.
I have a question to Basil. When you say I have chosen Haifa, what does it mean?
Oh, so when I left the kind of supporting the corporate advertising agency, brand agency world, you know, at the high level, and I went into the forest in Thailand. After I got the insights and started to see the patterns, the ecological wisdom, hydrological wisdom, and saw the potential for the blockchain, for the smart contracts to be able to biomimic those natural ways. I also saw the reality that, like, you know, Silicon Valley has all of the top money in tech, right? But what drives those people is often with greed. And I was like, I need the development team who is not driven by greed for money, because that will ultimately undermine our effort. And so, so when I came back to America from Thailand, you know, I was essentially introduced to Seeds on Earth Day of 2020, and I went into that to find out who's behind it, and like really pressing them, you know, on their humanity and their intention. Reiki and Alex and Yohim and Nick Hager, and then I went into Haifa almost like as a spiritual position, to hold the intention of what it is we're doing, so that the financial controllers, the investor relations people, don't undermine the mission. So I was in the shadows, battling inside the organization, to hold the intention, you know, even though it didn't make sense from a practical, pragmatic financial standpoint. Now it all makes sense, because after FTX collapse and everything, if we had been further along on the brand position before FTX, then we would have probably fallen away. And so now we have this opportunity to, you know, it's been a very slow process, but I chose Haifa because they're not based in Silicon Valley. They're not based anywhere. There's not a group of men in London or Paris or anywhere. It's like people like completely decentralized, you know, physically and ideologically. And I was like, we need that. And then they need to be able to let someone like me inside, the artist, the disruptor, the disruptive artist, and be able to like handle that. And it's been a battle the whole time, but through all of that, I still have, an optimism, a cautious optimism that it's not even specifically the people in the core right now, but the culture that's been created, that we can like start bringing in new, younger superstar developers from Silicon Valley now into that, in order to help to amplify and accelerate it from that cultural position, that isn't driven by greed, that is driven by passion and purpose. And so, yeah, that, I needed somebody, because I'm not a developer, so I couldn't bring these Web3 tools down to the grandmothers on the ground, to the tribes, to the African American communities. I couldn't do that, until I trusted the intention behind the developers, because they have so much power, and so so anyway, and surprisingly, hype is still there, and I don't know of any other development team that's done it quite like this, with a very human-centric, sociocratic, way. Yeah. Jury's still out, but now we're entering beta, and now it's up to us. We're like part of that level up team, we're, to help it evolve. And that's why, when Samara was the first alpha sort of DAO to form off of Haifa, there needed to be a mechanism to take the needs of the community into the core of the developers. So there needed to be a way for like, to be a conduit of like, what does the community need? What does the tribe need? And then that goes into the development core to kind of create those tools, or adjust the tools to fit the need of the community. Rather than a one size fits all. Here's Salesforce, this is what you get, Facebook. Rather, why can't like the people in the middle of the Amazon say, here's what we like, and here's what we don't like. And then that sort of really helps to influence the development cycles, the review, the constant process of like evolving the code, but if the code is just evolving from the mind of a white male kid in Silicon Valley, then I don't think it's going to meet the needs of everybody on the planet. So we needed that decentralized development company just to create this decentralized operating system. It's like the chicken egg situation, like what comes first. And so far so good with Haifa. Yeah.
I'm curious, what tribes in the Amazon have demoed the product, or like the structure?
Well, not the structure, but with seeds.
So Haifa hasn't demoed in the Amazon?
We have people that've been part of the core, like Diana Behrens, who's down in Brazil, part of the seeds. So we've worked on like seeds, like gamification and tokenomics with some of the groups down there. But part of the problem was just having a wallet is a difficult thing still for people. But thanks to like the key guardians, now it is technically possible so that people don't lose their tokens. But that's been more of the seeds experiment, not like Haifa. But now, like in the Haifa DAO, I think there's some DAOs that are like focused on that. I don't know, Rob is gathering the list. So it's Finca Sagrada in Ecuador with the Kogi tribe, and like what they're doing on like seeds and building circular.
The Kogi have worked with seeds?
Just
actually, or just like
near they work with Finca Sagrada, and then which is their land, and that fire is burning.
I know Finca Sagrada. That's funny, actually. Interesting.
Yeah. So the goal is to For me, it's not so much that I care whether or not they work with it. Rather, I wish or hope that they have an influence on it. That they
Yeah,
have
no, totally. What you're
they
saying, it's rather, it's like just implementing post-colonial approach to like tech design, that's really cool. And there's also like, profound philosophical implications there. And I was just like, I really networked with tribes in the Brazilian Atlantic forest.
Hmm.
And I'm just trying to imagine them working with like high forest seeds from the discussions I've had with you all. And I know that my brain stretch is trying to grasp all of these very avant-garde notions. And I'm like, these people are like, they live such simple and ecologically normative lives. If it's far out for me, I have such a hard time imagining, like, I don't know, my friends and peers in like in the year 101, the Honey Queen particularly, it's like it's hard to grasp. But I think that's a really sweet spot. It's like the two poles working together to create something new. And I really see, maybe a good approach is like the more that the value of the platforms can be connected with ecology. And I think actually a very good framework to potentially integrate are the UNPES, the paid for environmental services. Like there could be some, because like I this is what I foresee, right? Ecological services are just because like we're only realizing the monetary value. I mean, it's so crude, the monetary value of ecology, but really science has only just begun correlating capital with ecological throughput. But the more that grows is like, if you can integrate those with the coins, with the tokens, and even the DAO structure, obviously interrelating, that then becomes a proposition that becomes more interesting to indigenous tribes. Because as I mentioned, I mean, like the science is complete. Their lifestyle is ecological.
it's changing the incentive models. So they still need resources. So when I started this, I was working with like the Karen and Hmong tribe in my forest project, regenerative project in Thailand,
You're in
and the
Myanmar.
village.
The Karen are in Myanmar.
They're from, yeah, but they also live in the mountains of Thailand. And like so like my Thai partner, we bought the land at the top of a watershed, near a mountain, and then the tribes are up on the mountain. Now the tribes incentives aren't set where they are incentivized to manage the ecosystem in an ecological preservation way. And I'm like, okay, we need to do that, so that's why, I'm working with like Regen Network and other of those sort of nature tech companies to provide the monitoring, the satellite monitoring of like the forest canopy and then like the on the ground monitoring of the biodiversity and all of that. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I can't expect this little collective of tribes people to all get on this. But I felt like there only needs to be one or a small group of people in each community that have the aptitude to be technical, and then their role in the community, just like a plumber or a gardener, you have that new role in all communities, even in the Kogi tribe, to like handle the interface. The whole tribe doesn't need to do it, but as long as there's a intertribal trust for the people that are handling these tokenomics and working with the outside world and the other tribes around the planet, then we'll have a way to cross-pollinate information through those nodes. And so like with those tribes on the Brazilian Atlantic coast there, we just need to find the people within those tribes that have the natural aptitude for the math and the science or whatever, the engineering mind.
This is a great aspect for the state of the DAO. I mean, this is like a full 2 episodes here, diving in here. And it's interesting, in Australia, there's a team of researchers that have focused on how Aboriginal tribes have been working with blockchain and like how those relationships, and that's not the same thing, but it's like a really great people to connect with and learn from and add that in. I need to go, everybody. Really, really nice speaking. Nice to meet you, Alex. We lost her a while ago. Nice to see you again, Carol. Nice to see you again, Rob. Let's Basil, long email. There's a lot of details in there. I would love if you could like send the feedback just so like I can know. And then I would say us three, you, me, Rob, like let's brainstorm researchers, vanguardist researchers that can do this work well.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
All right. Take
Thanks,
care,
Dominic.
Nice to meet you.
bye.
Carell, I'm wondering if you had any thoughts that are popping in to bring in, and the reason that I'm asking even in more specific ways because I know that your work with the UFHD has brought you in contact. I think has brought you in contact with some indigenous tribes or cultures in Colombia. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, Eli's there right now, so actually he's with the Kogi this week. I have not personally met them, but being the co-founder of the UFHD, yeah, that's the thing is there's two challenges that bringing these designs together, not only in their local area, putting those cooperatives in place to do the 80-20 system projects, but also here in Canada or anywhere else on the planet. And of course, you need something to be able to do that in an organized way. And so this is one of those ways, for sure. And the other challenge with that is like working with people, the ones who are in alignment, as Basil had pointed out, the freaks. Those of us who are there consciously, there's still a whole bunch that are not. And so through that reinculturation process that we were doing was an important step to get people on the same page so that people are working cohesively and co-creating together. And so that was part of the challenge, is there was still, even though there was people called in to help formulate some of the project ideas and moving everything forward, because there's tons of things to do, like creating video and the website, and just there's all these components, right? There was still that mentality of not being able to show up with an open heart and just authentically be there. There was still that struggle of hierarchy, and it just is. And then there's those who are in different areas that want to be a part of that and promote it, but they too have their hands are tied and limited with the resources that they have. So that's part of the challenge, is how can you, just like Dominic said, getting all these smaller pieces together, right? And so yeah, it's moving ahead, some of the things that we're actually doing, but it's a slow process because we just don't have the resources to move as fast as we would like to.
That therein lies the chief challenge on the fact that we are on one Earth ship, and then you have communities all over that ship, and then you have the technological advancements. And so the problem is that the technological advancements were just serving those with the power and the resources and the money first. Yes. And then 30 years later, they trickle down. And I'm like, no. We need to like reverse that, so that like everybody gets all the newest, greatest stuff at the same time.
Exactly.
And have influence on the design of that stuff to fit their unique place-based reality. And so that's the key. Now we're you know, we're not there yet, but one of the ways that I see these the DAO tools being able to work is that we can take a governance culture like the Hopi governance system or the Mohawk governance system or any governance system, and we can literally put that into the code, you know. And so we can take what they've been doing, like multi-generational, through just like talking, through storytelling, and through like, you know, before paper, you know, of governing their unique thing. You know, when I was driving back from California earlier this year, and I stopped through to meet with elders in the Hopi tribe in the middle of ceremony, that's when they told me that they got the Constitution from the Mohawk back, you know, in the early like 1200s or 1300s, and they took their governance model, which is very religious, where you had a spiritual leader, you know, that guided the tribe, and they took that that consensus democratic logic from the Mohawk, which is what became our Constitution in the United States. But they pushed the women out of that Constitution that our forefathers did, where the Mohawk always had select women that could hold the men in check. And so we took that away and we created the Supreme Court, but it was still, again, male dominant. But what the Hopi did is they took and they did their 13 moon calendar and split the year in half, essentially, where half of the year they had the spiritual leader, like, you know, patriarchal, you know, spiritual leader. And then the other half of the year for decision making, they had the democracy, you know, council. So they merged the two ways to make it work, you know, so that yeah, which was fascinating. And we can do that with DAO tech. We can say, well, the Hopi have got this really cool thing, you know, this is what the Hopi model is, you know, or this is what the, you know, what a dictator looks like, dictatorship looks like. And maybe that works for some specific things like film production, where you need a director, or it doesn't get done.
Right.
But that person who's the director, this is the problem inside Haifa, is like D Studio was formed so that we could leverage, so we could create like a network studio of a lot of decentralized studios and talent around the planet. And each one of those entities can be the director of the project. You know, each project, you have a director, a manager, a coordinator, whatever. But you don't have just like one studio director like Rupert Murdoch or whatever that's just like the head of the network. And then then it's this hierarchical down through all of the agencies, you know. So it's like, how do we build that global agency with the same abilities and powers that the current global agencies have with advertising and whatnot and behavior change, but we remove that sort of top down structure and we kind of reverse it, you know. You know, so.
Yeah,
So,
that's exactly what we talk about a lot in UFHD. Not the top-down model, but the other way.
The horizontal model.
Yes.
Yeah. So what would be really fun, hopefully in the near term, once we get through our DAO programming, you know, beta, is that we'll be able to have a member of a tribe or somebody that can help. So we can help facilitate to help sort of code the organizational structure of that tribe in the chain in such a way where that is preserved through forever, effectively. And then other entities, other organizations, and other tribes can look at like what the different tribes are doing, and we can start to measure, like, you know what can go wrong and what goes right, and then we can sort of, you know, have faster access to the knowledge than ever before. That's the goal. And it's not being restricted by some centralized authority. It's like only this person gets it and those people don't. And that's, you know, what you have to reverse.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the share, right? So that's the sharing of resources, over right in these ways that can be connected quickly and easily, and in sharing what's effective, and the wisdom that's that's non-proprietary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a bit in a bridge right now, isn't it? Like
It's quite a bit in a bridge. I know, and isn't it interesting? It's like we're all walking on that bridge, but we don't know how long it is.
that's right.
Yeah, it's like we can't see the end of it. Even though it might be, who knows? It might be close, might be a little ways away. Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, and it's just so it's yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, the discussion today, and Basil, what you're coming in and what you're sharing, and Dominic, and yeah, it's it's really good, and I think that it feels like we're getting kind of this big picture, and yeah, and like Alex, does it feel like we're like you having some sense of what what we're talking about, and the DAO and what that might be, or
Not much, to be honest. I'm checking this Haifa website now, and but yeah, as I said, I'm pretty new to this topic, so.
yeah. Well, it's interesting, right? And that's like a big part of the role, that I'm stepping into there, is like how to communicate, to people like what this is.
Like how to
And
explain
it's not
what
easy, right?
better.
Because there's a way, where I'm still like, I get it, like I get it, but there's a way where I'm still like, okay, now what are we doing exactly?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what, like the sort of keeps the concept that's coming in lately of just thinking about it in this like playground way, of like, okay, how can we like play in it, right, and bring in, while we're doing that. I mean, I think it's a really good point. It's like, and while we're playing, what are we bringing in? What are we putting into the coordination system? What are we putting into the code? And so how, can we try and, play in it together? There's different ways, to work on the coordination. There's like planning it out, but then there's also just like, being in it and playing in it. And I think that's where some of the energy, I think, with holistic systems is there, right? So how can a group of people just just play in this?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Rob. Because you want to put some of the applications of what it's providing into real life situations, right? I mean,
Yeah.
once that is accomplished and it's successful, it's going to catch on really quickly, like really quickly. But all the foundational pieces have to be there, and that's kind of where we're at right now. It's like it feels like it's taking forever, but there's these foundational pieces that have to be there, and that's what we keep learning. And each one that does get seeded is important. And then it's also like the light comes on too. Oh, well, obviously that needs to be there. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing if that solid piece wasn't planted. Like getting the cacao here to Calgary, just getting it started, like getting people to try it from, where these are coming from, these cooperative farmers.
Yeah.
In the Santa Marta area, and Santa Marta, Nevada area. And it's 222. Look at that. And just like that was the biggest thing, was just getting people to come and experience the cacao and have a ceremony. It's as simple as that. And then talking about the 80-20 system and how this product came about. Like, what do? Everything from planting the seed to harvesting it is all ceremonial and done. So it's really a special cacao. it's special.
Yeah, and the 80-20 system, because I'm not, just for Basil and for Alex, can you give like a little, snapshot of what, when you say the 80-20 system, what you mean by that?
So 80%, so 20% is used for in a polycultural environment, and 80% goes back to reserves. So that 80% of the land is not used. It's just going back to nature. And if we're using polycultural systems, we can actually grow way more food than using the regular monocultural type system. And so these cooperative farmers are, I mean, they haven't got all quite the pieces, but man, they're really close to how they're cultivating and growing this cacao. So originally we were working with coffee, but coffee is way more complicated to even get imported. So that's why we've gone to the cacao. But it's kind of interesting how that all turned around, because it's very evident that people have to learn to open their hearts. And so that's what the cacao does. It helps us connect to our heart, mind, and be in community in a different human way, in a more loving way, which is the 5D world that we're now in. So that was the intention behind that, is to get people cohesively working together. And I think that's why it's been so difficult to just be patient with the whole process. But it's like on the brink of it. So, I mean, Eli is talking to the Kogi and the Wiwa tribes. And there's the other one. Sorry, I can't remember what it is. But they've always been really interested in wanting to do these projects, especially with the coffee.
So so Alex can sort of see a practical use case for blockchain tokenomics in this case. So so we already know that the chocolate cacao industry has been historically and even to this day quite using slaves effectively and children and whatnot to harvest all that stuff that then ends up in our chocolate, Nestle, whatnot. So with the ability of the blockchain, which is the key thing with blockchain technology, is that it's just an accounting record of inputs, outputs, and transactions. So when you have a local workforce that's coming to the farm, contributing to the cultivation and the harvests and the fermentation, or any part of the process, their jobs can be put on the blockchain ledger. Person X did Y for how long, and then they received this amount of value currency, which is very low, but they still did this effort.
Right.
Then what happens is at the end of the season and the end of the process, all of that stuff gets sold from that single source or that place. And then it goes through the supply chains.
Right.
And then it gets to the retail market, to the consumer. And they buy the chocolate bar that's made with the cacao from this farm or from these farms. Then that retail value of the chocolate bar, which is, value added, then there's a record of everybody who touched who participated in the chain, in the supply chain. And then when that chocolate bar sells, then a piece of the profit from that chocolate bar sale can trickle back to the source directly through the high speed fractionalized reality, of blockchain technology, of this new fintech. They call it fintech 2.0. Because we're taking the humans out of the accounting, because the humans are going to do what they do to maximize their middle process, their middle profit. So we're cutting the middleman. We still need middle process to move stuff around the planet, but we're solving two problems here. We're able to keep paying for low cost on the upfront because there's risk in buying the cacao as a wholesaler. But we keep that cost low, which means that in the near term, the farmers are still getting paid. We're not like all of a sudden just increasing the amount of money they're making, but they're still getting paid the sort of market rate, which is very low. But then when that product they make, if it's successful in the global market in sales, then they're getting a return from that retail, which is like plenty of money to go around at that point. And so then, so that what we end up with is we end up in a reality where the farmers are incentivized to put more love, more passion into the cultivation because they know that the better that it performs in the global market, they're going to get a piece of that back. And there was just no way to handle that before because the accounting was too complex because humans were needed. And now that we sort of cut the human accountants out of it, you know, and just use the computers and then have transparent ledgers through the blockchain, you know, with AI assisted oracles and whatnot to sort of monitor everything, then it provides the farmers with a sense of trust that, okay, I will sell you this cacao at this low rate so that I get a piece back from the retail, and I trust you because I don't need to trust you,
right? Because
everything is transparent. And that's the future we're heading into, and what blockchain technology is ultimately providing. And on the organizational side, with the DAO, the decentralized autonomous organizational side, it's effectively the same thing. It allows us to create organizations where there's no more backroom deals.
Yeah.
Like you don't have men meeting in back rooms making decisions, or families making decisions that affect all the lives of the organization. You know, and people in the layoffs, the mass layoffs and all of this stuff. Like we have to get beyond this thing that happens, which just devastates humans and families. Yeah. You know, they get the job and then they get laid off.
Yeah.
You know, that's just like devastating. So we have to fix these problems, and to do so, we needed a way to prevent we need a way to give more governance value, or more transparency in the whole decision-making process, so that when you're trying to go into a company, you know what's actually happening. So Haifa, every decision for people coming into work, including Rob, I just got an affiliate badge to like be able to sell. All of those are granted through the current workforce voting to let Rob come in to perform a role.
Yeah, you had to vote for me.
I voted for you.
Yeah, thank you.
I only had 0.1%, you know, voice, but I still voted for you. And then all of the decisions for the policies and the handling of the economics are all like on chain. Now people are still going to meet in Zooms and small groups. You know, in Haifa, they have all of those circle meetings, transparent, automatically put up onto Vimeo, so that technically we could all go watch through all of the financial meetings, all of the strategic anchor meetings, you know, and really get a sense for who's making the decisions. Because, you know, their voice still matters, but we're taking that sort of backroom deal making, you know, out of the equation as much as we can, because that's not good for the masses.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Alex, did that help?
Help in what?
Your understanding of, you know, what, like the concepts we're bringing in here.
Basically, I get the point of the concept of DAO. I've heard it before, right? So it's not that it was totally new to me, just that when you are talking such, I would say, like, you know, especially the initial part of our conversation was this discussion where I could like grasp at some points, but I couldn't definitely understand everything because I'm not in this world so deeply. Yeah.
Well, Yeah, it's again, you know, something that's like, I think we're all understanding and beginning to understand together. And you know, it takes you know, my experience is like, oh, okay, I get it, you know, and then I go forward, and then it's like, no, I don't get it anymore. And then I have some realization. I say, oh, now I get it all, you know, and then go forward, another thing, you know. So
so do I understand correctly that you want to create a DAO organization from Holistic Systems?
Well, yeah, well, there is so there is a DAO that, you know, Holistic Systems is already, you know, has been set up as a DAO. You know, there hasn't really been much, you know, going through it. But actually this, you know, it's an interesting question because this came to me this weekend. Right, there's this idea of, you know, Holistic Systems was, you know, was first sort of brought in and was attempted to be like, you know, Basil was saying, like this agency, you know, this agency for the good, right? And so, you know, having a lot of talent that works together in this, you know, organized and coordinated way, you know, of sharing value, you know, in a decentralized way. And so that was, you know, difficult to, you know, that was really ambitious, right? And so, you know, so basically we came, you know, kind of came back to where things are now, which feels very in alignment, you know, which is saying, okay, well, let's just see if we can get this foundation of resource sharing and of value sharing, you know, and if people can, right, come together and be in this culture of collaboration, and then, you know, use tools to help facilitate that. So, you know, so that's where Holistic Systems has been, you know, recently, and feels very clear and very sort of like, you know, in alignment, right? And that's why I've been writing more emails, and you know, just the focus feels, you know, everything feels more in focus. But what's also been a question as I've gone along is, okay, well, where, like, what, you know, what about like the work that I do, you know, and what about if I, like, you know, team up with somebody and we, you know, help a client out together, right? Like, that seems like another, it seems like a little bit of another entity, you know. And then there's the Holistic Systems website now, but that website is kind of, you know, not really relevant. And then there's the Notion. So there's been this, you know, a little bit of a, you know, wondering where everything lands. And this weekend, my thought was like, oh, since now, you know, the kind of order of business is to start, you know, trying things out and playing around, you know, in this DAO ecosystem, why not create a second Holistic Systems DAO, right? So the one that we have now is, you know, what we've been talking about. You know, the Holistic Systems DAO that's here now is, you know, is what we've been talking about in the last months, right? And what I'm writing emails about, and basically the value bank idea. And so, but then if there could be a second DAO, right? And what came was like, oh, Holistic Systems Services, because we're talking about service DAOs, right? So there's Holistic Systems Cooperative, and there's Holistic Systems Services. And there could be two DAOs, there could be two different websites. And, you know, the Holistic Systems Services, that could just be something where that, if there's any like actual services where that people want to like hire Holistic Systems, hire myself, you know, for, then it can go through that and go through that DAO. So like whatever we're coordinating that's sort of like outwards can go through that entity. And then that relieves any pressure from the Holistic Systems Cooperative to try and, you know, make money or feel like we have to, like, you know, team up and put out work, you know, for clients. And I thought, oh, well, that's an interesting idea, because actually, like, I could do that, right? Because I'm still, you know, I have some clients and they pay me, so I could do that and basically just, you know, nobody has to even, you know, join in that one. I could just kind of start running things through the DAO. And it's like, that's such a good question, you know, which is like these practical questions are coming up, which is like, well, how do I, you know, bill people, and how do, you know, how do we get paid in fiat and then tokenize it, and then de-tokenize it, so that way I can take out fiat and, you know, pay my rent. So these are very interesting questions. So that's what, yeah, that's one thing, you know, that came in this weekend. I was like, oh, it could just be 2 DAOs and, you know, 2 websites. And then, right, if I do a job with, you know, right, if a client comes in and they're like, okay, well, we need some, you know, pre-branding, and I say, oh, okay, well, you know, I have this person, so we come in, you know, as strategic partners, and then just kind of run it through the DAO.
Yeah, and so ultimately at the end of days, like same with D Studio, there's like our global sort of collection. Each studio, you know, the one in Thailand, the one in Germany, in Berlin, the one, you know, each localized cluster would have its own localized governance structure, and so it's like a mini DAO in the greater DAO organization. So it's like it's taking the same as like global media agency networks exist now, is you have offices in each major city, and those are owned usually majority by the global network, which is in London or New York, or Switzerland or whatever. So it's really, all we're doing is we're taking what currently works and we're making it so that, you know, it's more cooperative. You know, so yeah. So Rob, you know, you can start by just creating a circle within HSC as it is right now that can kind of spin out into its own thing, or you can create another DAO. But I just see a lot of complexity there potentially. But the main thing is we want to be able to showcase like function for, like, you know, service. I just thought that HSC was a service provider just straight up.
Well,
like
I think, yeah, see, and I think the complexity for me has come in is that HSC as it is now is not a service provider. It's not a service provider, and it is a collection, a collaborative of independent contractors, freelancers, and entrepreneurs who are coming together to share value with each other, you know, and synergize that value for the benefit of everybody in that group. You know, so some of the value might be that people hook up and do work together, but that's just one aspect. And I think that has been the key that's, I think, really made it so that way, you know, Holistic Systems has a possibility of being something, you know, is that we're saying, no, we're not a services DAO. We're not yet, right? If you get a group together, the first thing is get a group together that can share value, you know, and actually synergize it, that has some proof of concept. And if you get that group together, you know, you get a big enough group and they work together long enough, there's enough trust, then you could spin off. But I don't think that wants to come in now. So I think that there's almost like a bit of a sacredness, you know, to what Holistic Systems, you know, cooperative is now. You know, that I think like it wants to kind of be its own, you know, entity. It has its own value proposition. But I thought, oh, okay, well, but you know, some of us are you know, offering services, right? Like we want to offer services. So you know, again, I see your point. Like it could be, right, it could be a circle, you know, you know, of Holistic Systems, but we're not even there yet. Like we don't even have like the circles set up. We don't have people occupying those roles.
So so I don't know if this is how it's going to unfold, but you know, part of like these structures is, you know, I'm looking at like William Morris and other like HR companies and just HR companies. And so the humans, they go into the HR company, and the HR company gets a piece of every transaction that person does. And so that works. The problem is that little piece that is going off to that company is owned by a small group of people, and the workers, they're not getting royalties back from the company. They're not getting equity in the company. So for me, it's taking the structures that work, the corporate structures that work, like William Morris, CAA, all of these major global talent agencies, and you take these talent agencies, top talent, whatever, and say, hey, let's make this talent agency, but it's owned by the talent for the talent. And so that's what the studio was intention for, is like to gather the talent, and then the talent are owners and governing members of the agency, or at least they select through voting who is like the governing members of the agency over time. And so I don't know if like, so then like if HSC is like the gathering of the multidisciplinary talent, and then there's all of these other sort of sub-DAO agencies like the studio and others that have specific function. Then you have the human holistic systems cooperative of humans, which creates a culture for the humans that's supportive of the humans. And then you have all of these functional entities, brand agency, production, your brand studio, production studio, marketing studio, whatever. And then you have the people, and they're in this flat sort of collective in HSC, and then they can go in and serve roles or serve assignments for the brand agency or the production agency or whatever.
Yeah. That
So
sounds
that way,
that sounds right. That sounds like that's in alignment with that model, or
So I
with
think
what I'm talking about.
if we look at like the current corporate structures that exist and work on the global mainstream, and all we're doing is we're taking the shareholders, that small group, we're cutting their heads off, and we're making like it so that the people that are in the organization get an increasing share of that organization based upon their commitment over time, the amount of value they add. So like if Basil is a member of Holistic Systems Co-op, and Holistic System Co-op is and Basil's giving like 5% of every job or every gig to HSC, then HSC is accruing this bank of value from the transactions of Basil. And then Basil in return is not just giving away that 5%. What he's actually doing is he's giving away the 5% of the liquid cash to go into the treasury of HSC, and then Basil's getting in return co-op tokens, and then Basil's accruing these co-op tokens, and then that way, if Basil is the number one HSC, Basil is going to get a lot of a bigger and bigger piece of the overall HSC pie, and then every year there can be the dividends going back to the people, the airdrops of value going back to the people. And so the way a co-op works in the United States, an LCA co-op works, from the profits of the company back to the working members. So it's like worker owned cooperative. And so effectively it allows us to create worker owned cooperatives on a global level that through the DAO framework, and using the co-op tokens or the HIFA tokens or the whatever, just as value, measure them as the value to distribute to the people that then gain increasing liquidity that we can actually use to buy things with over time. And so that's where we're heading, and we're stepping very carefully and cautiously because we're working out, like we're still working on the tech side.
That's very good. It's very good. And it's interesting, like that's like, I like the idea of that's where we're heading there cautiously, and I think, right, that's where what I was speaking to, and now what you're speaking to, is this idea of like, oh, okay, a holistic systems cooperative, or an entity like that. What we're doing, like you were talking about with HIFA, is creating this culture, and that's right. So that's interesting to me, and the fact that like in allowing it to move as fast as it moves on its own accord, and moving at the speed of trust, as we've been saying. Seems important. Yeah. So that's actually, I'm interested, like, so thank you, Basil. Yeah, thank you. That's really good. I'm interested, Karel or Alex, my thought, or the prompt really is like, what what do you think would be the culture? Like if you were saying, oh, okay, I want holistic systems to be, have a culture of resource sharing and value sharing and coordinating together, like that would look like this to me. I'm curious if there's anything like, what would be the culture that, like, what would be the hallmarks for you?
I think it's more up to you, Rob. Somehow I have this feeling that it's you are brainstorming, like shall we go this direction, shall we go that direction, but you are the leader of this project.
Okay, I'm hearing that. I mean, yeah, I have very specific ideas. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting, it's an interesting exploration, right? It's something that Justin has brought up in a couple of meetings, that, right, that it's still my baby. And so that's been something I've been thinking about, right? Because I do want the idea is it is a co-built, co-created cooperative. And at the same time, right, I'm still, the driving force, behind it at this point.
Do you remember when we met and I told you about my failures when I attempted to create some sort of communities?
I do, yeah.
And one of them was because I'm Polish in Berlin, and I thought that there is nothing here for Polish people, and I wanted to create some sort of creative Polish people community in Berlin. And it never worked out because people were expecting me as a leader, as a founder of this community, to tell them what is it all about and what are we doing here. While at the same time, I never wanted this. I wanted to collaborate. I wanted everybody to bring their own ideas on the table. And there was this tension all the time because the more they were like forcing me to say, like, what is this all about? Tell us. I never wanted to claim that role, and it never worked. Yeah. So to that time, I wasn't aware of this kind of dynamic, but I somehow intuitively see that maybe something like that is also happening here. Yeah. So it creates a forum for discussion where everybody can drop their own ideas, and we can talk about Haifa, we can talk about GaiaNet, we can talk about pre-branding, whatever. Or we are in the meeting of holistic systems, and you are telling us what shall we do? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
very interesting.
Being a leader in the community has always been a challenge. But what I can say is, from my own experience, it has to be yummy for you to do what you're doing. It has to give you life and have purpose and value. And so what works well in my community, because we're doing healing work and it's very spiritual, is everybody's part of it. I kind of throw out different things every once in a while, but they all have a buy-in because it feeds them. So they've been empowered to use their skills without me micromanaging everything. And it's been around since 2005, the healing team. And yeah, people have stayed because I see them authentically and I empower them to do what they're good at. Even when I teach classes, it's the same thing. I empower them to use their skill to their best ability and encourage them to keep practicing. And all I ever ask of anybody is just show up. Just show up. When you show up, you might learn something, you might get an aha, you might, it has to feed you in some way. It has to have meaning. And, yeah, of course, if I say, hey guys, we're going to have a meeting, UFHD meeting, they're waiting for me to call the meeting. They don't call the meeting. I do. Or Eli does.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Yeah,
so
well,
that's just where the chips fall. It's not going to be any more than what Eli and I put into it. And I'm certainly not going to be the one that's doing all the leading, because we're supposed to co-create that together. So if one of the leaders is, out of sync or needs time out or something's happened in life or whatever it is, the other one has to be willing to pick up the slack. But also with the understanding that this is where we're at, like this is all we can do right now.
mm-hmm.
So that spiritual component has been the backbone of just being able to allow and not micromanage everything. Like the UFHD is its own entity, and it's got a life of its own. So, but I constantly am following what that life is about. And if there's something important to be done, then bam, I'm on it.
Mm-hmm.
But if, there's so many pieces that play into the livelihood of what it is, and the healing team as well. Like if people are willing to step in and help out, which they all kind of have jobs, a little bit, a job to do this or that or the other thing, they're very willing to do it. They all cooperate together,
Mm-hmm.
which is nice. It's really nice. And certainly if there was a point where I couldn't do a piece and I asked for help, they would step up. So I guess being clear as a leader what your needs are, what you need help with, realistically where we're at, those are also big pieces.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you both. Yeah, it's a lot to, it's sort of right. It's a lot to think about, because we are, like right in what you both are talking about. There's this idea of like, okay, like it's up to me as the leader, to facilitate, be the lead facilitator, move things forward, and then also, allow it to take its shape. Yeah. Because there's a way where I have like, part of what I think I do is, I'm like push things forward, yeah, I guess there's just a way where I like I love doing this, and putting out the ideas. I just, there's a way where I don't want to push it like over people, I don't like push it forward, but not push it like over them. And, and so that's still, it feels like a balance. And, at the same time, like, I don't mind, do it like, moving it forward and pushing it forward. And, and there's also a way where I can't like do it all myself, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a balancing piece. And I think that's why the spiritual side of things is so important, because innately we have to listen to our intuition and our higher self to see, is this still in alignment? Like, is this still a thing? Is this still viable? Are we in the right place? Does it need a pause? Like, what's going on with the group? Right?
Yeah. And I try and listen. I listen for that,
Yeah.
because I'm always like, okay, do I keep going, with this? And I haven't heard any messages to say stop. The messages are usually like, yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the time. All right, so with that, I'm looking at the time. There's 3 minutes, like in our scheduled time, and I like to just try and stay true to that. So then I have a question. It's really more of it's a question for everybody, but I know Basil's answer. So, so you can answer last, but like the question is, would you, if there was a, if there was a way to, like a digital playground that we can use a platform for that, right? There's the member portal, and I think that's that works well for like putting your needs and your needs and offerings in, and then we can communicate in Discord, and right, and there's a lot that can be popped in the member portal information, but it's the value contribution log, it feels a little flat to me. I'm not even like I'm barely like incentivized to use it, so the question is, if there was a digital tool, right? It might be an app that you have to put on your wall. It might be something in the in the web, but where we could really start exchanging these tokens. Is that something that you would want to play with?
There's a big part of me that says yes. I'm curious to see how it would work, because not only am I curious about connecting on this platform, like this platform and across the world, but what can be used locally in our own community. Like, that's another piece that's always been on the back of my mind. It's like, how can we utilize this in a new way, a constructive way that people want it. They just don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah.
That often comes up. So yeah, I guess you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Why not here?
Yeah.
Alex?
I would say that maybe it's for me a bit too early to reply to that question, because I'd never tried this. I went through all this because I was 1 hour early, so I took this time to examine all this Notion platform and Discord, and so I know which contribution log you are talking about, and intuitively, as Carol said, there is something that says, oh yes, why not? But it's out of curiosity, I think, because I've never seen something like that. I would like to see if I could actually use it. But then more rational mind kicks in, and I'm like, why don't you just first achieve a product market fit and make sure that people are actually using that, you are actually killing some pains of people. Yeah. And what kind of user journey can you design so that they get the value? And once you have this MVP figured out, then maybe you can start thinking, okay, this works great, but just with the basic tools, how can we professionalize it? Instead of building solutions right away and not knowing if people will actually use it. So this is my logic.
Thank you. Yeah, I fully agree with that logic. I'm not building any tools. These tools are already there. Other people are building them. They're there. Yeah, it's just I didn't build Notion, and there's I'm not building Hypha. So other people are building the tools, and then we're just saying oh, okay, well, let's try these out. Let's play with them.
Right. So you are thinking apart from the open source Notion, open source Discord, now you want to use open source DAO, some tokenized exchange system, right? Is that correct?
Because at the end of the day, Notion is a Web 2 platform that doesn't actually create or register any value. It's easy to edit, whereas if you do a quest, in Hypha, in HSC or DStudio or whatever, then you actually get tokens into your wallet, and then for that MVP, and getting the tokens might be good for you because you feel like you're part of something, you're gathering something, you're accruing something, you're accruing these seeds or whatever it is. So that's part of it. But then the final payoff for having accrued these points, these credit card points or these airline points or whatever it is is like, what do I get with these points? What do I get with these tokens? That is going to be the final step. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, we're
Yeah.
in such a phase that like HSC tokens, DStudio tokens, Haifa tokens have no real inherent value. Haifa is now starting to get that inherent value, but HSC will have to determine like, how are the co-op tokens valued, and what do people get with them, if anything, at this point?
Yeah. And I think the value, right? I think, right. And this is good. I appreciate this. And right, this is what I mean, how I perceive this is what Alex does, you know, that is helpful for me, you know, and especially just in the brief time that we've known each other, you know, is your ability to ask these questions that then bring out, you know, what is like, what's here, what's the reality, you know, that you're trying to achieve, you know. So thank you again. Also, just pointing out, right, if you didn't if I didn't say it already, the value bank idea, which I really like, that came from my session with Alex, you know, that value bank, which I love it. It's just, you know, she was like, there's a time bank. No, it's not a time bank. So what is it? Oh, it's a value bank. So that's always going to be a co-creation. If it's anything, you know, turns into anything or not, that's a co-creation between the two of us. So I think what I'm, you know, but what came through is like I think that's the ask, right? The ask that I'm saying here is, hey, can you play with some toys with me? Right? Like, I don't know what the perfect combination is. I don't know if it's Notion and Discord and Haifa or Coordinate or, you know, Haifa and like, I don't know, but if I can bring the toys, right? If I take the toys and I figure out how to use the toys and I bring the toys to the group and I say, oh, okay, now will you play with this one with me? Because it isn't the toy that we're building. What's that?
I like this question, and I think it conveys the meaning of it's so much easier than to understand your intention. And in this way, I would say yes. I would. It feels like a safe environment. It doesn't mean that now it's decided and forever. So it's maybe still possible to get back. Like you can forget Notion and build a whatever other system at some point. Yeah. So if it's about experimenting, I think it is super important to experiment. And right now there's not too many people yet, so probably there won't be so much work with it. And so maybe it's a good idea indeed.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, thank you. It's a great, yeah, I mean, I right, like to frame it that way, because I think that's true. You know, that feels true to me, right? But it's easy, like you're saying, it's easier for you to sort of understand what the question is, what the ask is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Before there was some heaviness with this question, like, oh my God, now we are going to say yes, and this guy is going to invest so much, maybe not money, but work into some systems, and if it doesn't work, but if you are saying it's like, let's play, who wants to play? Yeah, let's play.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it, right? I think that's it, because the you know, the system, right, that is just this is, you know, all I'm saying, right, I don't have to invent any system. I'm just saying like collaboration is the system. You know, that's natural, you know, and so it's just like, oh, okay, well, should we come, you know, can we come and get together and play in collaboration, and here's some toys to help us do that. And I think the value, right, like Basil, you know, you're talking about, okay, well, Haifa's starting to have some value. Does co-op token have any value? No, you know, so I think that the value would come out of that naturally. If there's going to be value, it'll come out of that.
And if
but
not,
that's not why we're doing it. You know, like that's not why I feel like that can't be the reason why we're doing it. We're doing it because we want to play in this and we want to create something. Sorry, what did you say, Alex?
No, I said, and if not, then we will definitely learn from the experiment.
Yeah.
but we will have fun on the way. So, so it's still worth doing it.
Yeah. It's like, you know, I love to, you know, whether it was Legos or blocks or whatever, you know, it was, I loved to build the castle when I was a kid, right? But I probably loved more to then smash it all down. Yeah.
My favorite game was the Tycoon roller coaster and building amusement parks. So there's also economical strategy and like making prices a bit up, a bit down, and so on. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. So I'm playing this new game called Whiteout Survival. You can't see.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't see it. The screen is blurred.
So
Oh, there it is.
this new game that's a role play game, but with people around the world, and the same thing is like you form, you know, you go in as a unique player and you're leveling up your character by gathering and battling and whatever. But then at a certain point, for you to really level up faster, you have to join an alliance. And so the alliances have a maximum of 100 people, and you've got thousands on each server, and then you've got many servers. And so what happens is first it's like your individual journey, and then you have to work with the alliance, with real human beings, to like do things together and make decisions and vote together. So all of the stuff we're talking about already exists in this Web 2 reality. And you get like the rewards and the tokens and the payoffs, you know, the little endorphin hits, you know, with like when you go into a casino and the ding ding ding. That works with the dopamine hits. But then what happens is then the whole server, while you have alliances battling each other for supremacy on the server, who's the best, who's the number one alliance on the server, at a certain point, the servers have to compete like states against each other. And so then you have people that otherwise are battling within the state, like in the Congress of the US, then, you know, trying to get the whole population of the server to work together to dominate the other state in a battle. This game that we play, this metaphorical game that we play, you know, we can take these tools, but we design them with blockchain tokens so that we can do like what Troy Mork and what he's been designing is like the real world games. So for instance, we can start to play this real world game like this, Rob. I'm throwing out a suggestion, and this has been part of the plan all along. Even though you have become you've been voted into Haifa to do a certain role, you know, you can kind of represent HSC, you know, and so you were the in between. Now Haifa is going to be giving you Haifa tokens, okay, but then you, through like you know, you can have a little team around you to do things, and then you can issue co-op tokens to those people, and then you create an internal trade relationship of like, okay, so you collected your co-op tokens for helping on this project. Now you can keep them in co-op tokens, or you can redeem them for Haifa tokens. So like you are going to get Haifa tokens into your wallet, but you can easily like manually send Haifa tokens to somebody else's wallet, so that we can start to at least on Ledger do something where you know you gather 100 Haifa tokens, and then maybe you have a 10-to-1 value of 10 co-op tokens to 1 Haifa token. And then that way we can really start to play this game of real world action, coming together to do real things, you know, building a brand, building a marketing team, building productions, and then have like multiple people participating, and then they're getting their tokens for participating, and then they're able to trade those tokens in for another token, Haifa token, and then that still doesn't get them anything that they can buy on the ground, but at least it goes to the motions, because very soon we'll be able to go full liquid, so that so you can collect your gems, you can collect your tokens, just like in these games that every kid and adults are playing around the world, but make it something more real, more tangible in our daily lives, rather than just this.
And more purposeful.
more purposeful. Yeah. So I think that we're in an opportunity over the next, few months while you're doing this task is you are acting as like the account director for Haifa, and you're taking the need of Haifa, and then you come back to the team and say, okay, here's what we need to do. And so maybe it's like brand positioning Haifa in this State of the DAO show. And then we have a lot of different roles that are going to be required for like research and performance and for social media amplification and all of this stuff that we can start to create like tokenized rewards for doing things like sharing and helping to boost the performance of the products that we're creating.
Mhm.
That's I see potential there for us to do that. And then on the economic side for people, you have been bringing in jobs, I've been bringing in jobs, and I've been paying people fiat, US dollar for doing things, but we're not handling that through our DAO tools, like I want to. So the more that we can do these token games, to play, like
Yeah.
here's the objective, here's the quest, who wants to play, and then we have a way to reward the people for playing. So that's one, and then for us to then start to figure out how we can use the chain to sort of measure the people that are playing and their value inputs in the value bank, and then being able to give like actual euro and US dollar rewards through the play is the next step.
Right.
Especially for paying gigs for like, hey, help me build my website, help me build my brand.
Right. Yeah, we play, we learn how to share tokens, how to share value, right? Yeah, and then some, right? And then somebody comes in, I need to buy some services. Oh, okay. Now there's, good, there's some fiat. Then how do we flow that through? But we play first.
We go through the motions of play, and then quickly I've been doing it where like in D Studio DAO, I had people registering their things in the DAO as like a secondary ledger just to keep track of stuff. And then we have a bank with the real money in it. And then I'm sending people, PayPal or Venmo or Zelle or whatever, real money, and trying to make that sort of traditional bank ledger also visible on the decentralized DAO ledger. Because what it allows us to do is it allows us to easily send tokens to each other. And those tokens don't have any inherent value yet, which is good right now, for securities issues and all of that. But it allows us to like frictionlessly send the value. And then all we have to do is like, right now manually, have like the real like liquid bank, the US dollar accounts and the euro accounts, that can then like send the real value to people, which requires like tax reporting and all of that. So we're kind of like in this sort of stepping phase where we're playing with these new tools carefully, as a point to like create a future reality where we can like trust, things.
And I think that's why
also making money at the same time.
Yeah. And I think, and to do that, and then, well, thank you all for staying. I mean, I want to make sure that I'm not keeping everybody too long, but it's gotten, very interesting to me. Not that it wasn't before, but I think that, what you're saying there is it sort of reinforces to me what I was thinking as far as like having a holistic systems cooperative, that's a separate entity, even though they're connected, obviously, but a separate entity than holistic system services, right? Because the cooperative, we can just be playing in it, and and eventually that'd be great. That'd be great to pump some fiat money through it. But, it's sort of a separate purpose.
To keep the intentions pure. Yeah. Because when we start moving real money, we can quickly lose the point of what we're building here. And so
it can quickly turn from play to, fighting in the sandbox.
Yeah. Why is he getting more than me? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so while we were on this call, I released a brand new episode on betterworlds.com. So you guys should check out betterworlds.com. And the new issue is with Dr. Bronner's granddaughter, the soap maker, the 5th generation soap maker from Germany. And so that just went public on betterworlds.com. Yeah.
Cool. I think the H is capitalized or something. But yeah, betterworlds.com. Yeah, thank you. Anything before we wrap up? Anybody have anything else to that they want to bring in? Burning needs?
No, I'm good. I just want to thank you, Rob. That's great. And everybody who's here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Thanks, Corel, for showing up, bring your energy. Thank you, Alex. Welcome, Alex. Thank you. Thank you, Basil, for popping in. Thank you for bringing Dominic. Yeah, it was great. You know, I mean, I feel like it was another one of those meetings where the people who were here are the exact people who needed to be here.
Yes.
Very lovely. And
Yeah.
are you guys on meeting? Because this is my main platform. Can I send you the invitations there, Basil and Carol?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, cool. I'll find you.
Wait. Send invitations where?
In LinkedIn.
Oh yeah. You can find me.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, LinkedIn, right? And Alex is in the HSC Discord now, but of course, yeah, please send LinkedIn and
that's going to be one of the games that we issue for Better Worlds. Is since we're this episode that just went live just now on YouTube and on our blog, tomorrow we'll be releasing the LinkedIn excerpt, and then we can start to play games of like amplification, sharing, and stuff. Figure out how to like, utilize. Anyway, you get it. How to marketing. We need to be better at marketing and sales, and so we need people to like amplify, and we need a way to like reward them for doing so. So we'll figure it out.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right, a lot of things to digest today. So
thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, really appreciate it. And if the email that gets sent out to you next week is if the title is come play with me or something like that, don't be surprised.
No
Okay. Problem.
Okay.
Right.
Bye.
All right. Ciao.
Bye. And Basil, let's be in touch about this project. Yeah.
Yeah, because now that you have like actual Hypha tokens, then you can like, rally the team, me and Troy and others, and say, okay, we need to do this, Dominic, and we need to do this, and then we can, if all goes well, we can like launch this State of the DAO. Because my plan with State of the DAO is I wanted Hypha to be like the sponsor, so that then we like have this like, so then we're like, instead of Hypha like doing their own communications, we have this outside entity doing communications, and then Hypha is getting the side traffic funnel.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, that's perfect, right? Because the communications have to happen, right? And we're still gonna I'm still gonna need to do, Hypha, just general Hypha communications. There's still gotta, but this is something, very particular and very, like special. Yeah. That has, right? That has a lot of potentiality in it.
Right. And so on that Hypha branded comms, I would suggest you go through their current videos explaining things, and then we like iterate those, like we redo them, we make them better, because right now they're still just using this like Zoom, like, that's fine, but like, we need, that's the MVP. So they have the MVPs, and then
well, that's something. Yeah, I mean, that's and that is something that we should talk about. I know, and I should pop out soon. but that's something that we should talk about is like how, right? Because that's part of what we want to be doing, right? That's part of the idea, which you probably, is like tell the stories, right? Not just like, hey, Haifa, and we have this, platform, but like so I want to be interviewing the folks in Haifa. And
So Joachim asked me that at the very beginning of Alpha. He's like, I'm like, what do you need? And he asked me if I could help, to like gather the stories of all of the Alpha projects, but like nobody has been able to really do much in the Alpha.
Yeah, nobody's been able to do much, I think, until now, right? So that's part of what I'm tasked with, right? I can interview people, and I can get Zoom footage and all of that, and I could, but I don't have the experience in sort of figuring out, okay, well, how do we get like quality footage, from the people that we're interviewing? I mean, how do we set up do they just set up their phones?
You task D-Studio. D-Studio has the Riverside account. We do the interviews through Riverside, not through Zoom, first and foremost. And for me, the process that I was going to be doing, if I was doing it's like entry interviews. So it's just like a reality show. We're asking everybody, why are they coming into Haifa? What are they looking for?
Yeah.
And then they haven't done anything yet. So we can't like say, what have you done? Because there's nothing that they've done.
100%. Yeah, 100%. We're telling the stories, but we have to start where they are.
So then we can set up a scheduled thing for like these 20 or 30 minute, sessions with like leadership or a leader from as many of the DAOs currently on chain, and they're going to keep giving more. And then we're telling that ongoing story. So it's like the first interview we do with them before they've really done anything is like, what are they looking for? What are they hoping for? What are they in, and then we gather that, and then we come back every 3 months or 6 months, because then that information of what they're looking for can help with the facilitators, the DAO facilitators to help guide them through the unique process.
Exactly.
And then,
yes.
And then each DAO will have its own story chain over time of like when they started, what they were hoping for, and like
like,
oh, it doesn't work, and then it just like terminates. That's okay too, but at least
it's all okay.
Entry interview and impending, success, and then in the case of an exit, we try to get the exit interview.
Yeah.
We don't want that to happen, but it's going to happen.
Yeah. No, I mean that's exactly it. And right, and there's two people, two sort of sets of people, at least to start with, right? There's the people who are, the betas and the alphas. There's the people who are going on their DAO journey, right? Like as I'm calling it's the DAO journey.
Like the DAO journey.
And then
Yep.
What's that?
The DAO journey. That's great for this process.
Yeah, and then right, but then there's also the Haifa people, right? We want to start interviewing, and I know there's plenty of I know there's good footage of them, right? Which is fine, but there's
no, we need to do it through Riverside.
And if there's footage that can be better, higher quality, if we can go through Riverside, I know I'm starting to sort of bring in what are these questions that I want to ask folks, right? And because that's a separate story. That's the story of Haifa.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing coming from them, right? It's the same kind of question that's coming from the people who are on their DAO journey. Why are you here? Why are you doing this? But those questions are also just as valid and just as telling, to Alex, to Joachim, to
Yeah. So I was wanting to do that, and the reason why I can't do that is because I needed you or somebody to handle that sort of marketing director or account manager role to be the go-between, to sort of like, here's the need, we're totally aligned on the need, and now we can execute, because I can do my part, on the help on the execution side. It's just that interface with the client side where I fail.
Yeah.
So I needed a client manager essentially to handle, because Justin Dealey and I apparently don't get along. You know, Yohim and I all of a sudden have come back around. You know, there's a time where we didn't get along.
Yeah.
You know, but like, yeah, he's quite supportive of me now, and you know, Alex has always been there,
That's
and
great.
Mark has always
Yeah, well,
been
because
there.
I need right in this job, like you know, like I need some, you know, if I need to like make video, you know, take Zoom, interview people on Zoom, you know, and then just kind of cut Zoom footage and try and do that as best as I, you know, quick as I can with AI and whatever, you know, then I can do that. But I'm going to be limited on how much I can do, and I'm definitely going to be limited on the quality of it, you know. And so, right, if we bring it right, so if you're able to come in and help with that, right, then we're going to pump the quality up. We're going to pump up the amount, you know, that can go out, and we're going to pump up the quality. I'm talking about first the quality of the footage, and then number two, the quality of the output, right? So that's
Exactly.
and
Yeah,
right,
the
and you don't
quality,
have
the
to, and you don't have to,
consistency.
you don't have to deal, you know, right? Like, and I'm talking with the people. I'm, you know, as far as exactly what you're saying, I'm managing everything with the, you know, with the talent in this case, right? I'm worrying about like what to, you know, what to ask them and what to, you know, I mean, right, because I'm in that, you know, in this sort of like, oh, okay, this is, you know, what we want to hear from them.
Yeah, and it's just I don't know what it is. I'm just not good on the client side. So like the agencies that I've worked with well know how to work with me. And they usually trot me in like with new clients to kind of like wow them just on the first meeting, and that's it. And then I'm out. And the only time that client's going to see me again is when we're going through the final like editing process or something together. You
Yeah.
know, but all of that middle is handled, you know, through client service, you know, like, you know, hand holding the client and then I wouldn't say hand holding the talent, but you know, managing the talent, or, you know, making sure the
Yeah,
talent
on set.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's perfect. Well, let's do it. I mean, again, this is another opportunity for us to run things through and to play in this, right? It's another opportunity to play, right? Because we can, because it's okay. Well, you're gonna, you know, you're gonna help, so you're gonna need to put in a proposal and a contribution. You're gonna need to get some, you know, HIFA tokens, and oh, okay, well, like we can run things through HSC and through, you know, D Studio.
That way we can like what used and everybody was counseling me like just you need to be able to black box it. So I had to create the studio, but I was unable to work closer because I've already told Haifa and Yohim and Alex in the very beginning, like the plan was D Studio is a product. It's another product. You know, and so I'm totally okay with Haifa having a big stake in that, you know. But we need that way. So when I first met you, that's what I saw was that HSC can be that soft intermediary layer between the client side and this production studio side, so that we can have these powerhouse like studios, you know, that are like safe in a safe place, and HSC can create the safe space, just like these studios meant to create the safe space. But at the end of the day, the client needs what the client needs, and there has to be that connection. And so right now you've come through, you got the assignment in Haifa for that role, and now we can start to play and show them how we play, you know, downstream of that role where you're bringing in the funds. Right now it's through you. In the future, hopefully it would be like to an entity, to a DAO entity, and then you were assigned as like client service or whatever, you know, strategist, and you have like other people, whether it's, you know, Troy or me or whoever is part of the circle that's handling the account. Just like in an agency, the goal is that the brand, the company that needs the service, what they need is they need continuity, they need handling, you know, they need performance. And so just like with the standard agency, you have the account manager or account director handling the account, and then you have the creative director, one of many out of the agency that's assigned to that account. You have the art director assigned to that account. You have the film director assigned to that account. And the client can see who it is. And if they don't like someone or they don't want somebody on it, they tell like you, the account manager, I don't like this director. Or I don't like what they're giving us. And then you're like, no problem. We swap the person out with another person in our talent repository, you know?
Yeah. And that is a great long-term vision, you know, and you know, for now, like I think, you know, I think we're at a place where we can start to play with that, right? Because not, you know, in this role in Haifa, right? Like I have something now that I'm you know, tasked to do that because, you know, because HSC, right? I don't know what it, you know, like, right, what HSC the services is going to be. I don't yet know, but what I, you know, but it's not something, right? Like I don't want to repeat you know, like the mistake of the past of saying like, oh, okay, now I can like coordinate all of that, you know, without any money coming in.
Yeah. So this first assignment, you've done it 100% for Haifa, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah, it's just this first one, it's just through exactly through Haifa. That doesn't mean, right, again, you know, we can't start running things through, but this one is through Haifa, right? It's a Haifa role, so I'm representing Haifa, you know, so D Studio and Haifa can run it through together, and that's right. But that's a good first step, you know.
And we could show, because again, you and I are still United States citizens. We still have tax liabilities in the United States. So we have to be very careful in how we play this game until it's like safe for that stuff. So it's actually good that, you know, so whenever Haifa was paying cash out to March Media to Kim and I, it was going out through March Media Services and being reported as income.
Yeah.
So at least we reported it as cash income. Now the Haifa tokens, no, because those are just measurement. We don't have any value yet. But the minute they have real value, liquid value, then we might get stuck with like reporting issues on Haifa tokens, which I don't want to go there yet. But
yeah.
At least,
see, but that's yeah, exactly. But that's also what we have to be playing in, because that is a real use case, you know, and a real challenge that these DAOs that are coming in are going to have, right? That's what, and already, you know, I mean, some of them, that's the very starting place. They're like, well, how do I, you know, they're like, okay, I need to pay people, you know, and I'm in New Zealand and I need to pay, you know, somebody in India and somebody in Venezuela and somebody in the United States, and we'll run that all through the DAO, you know, but then come out with fiat. So those are things that, you know, that are good to start, you know, to like,
yeah,
you know, right, for us to work on. But again, like, you know, when we're starting here, just like the discussion today, yeah, we don't need to start there. We need to.
We're in the experimental. So the way I frame it is that we're helping at the alpha beta experiment. You know, like we have no illusions that this stuff means anything. You know, Haifa isn't telling us that it means anything. You know, we don't have expectation that the Haifa tokens mean anything. Our point is like testing the technologies to create a transparent reality for us all as an experiment for now. You know, in a year from now, it's going to be a different story. It's going to be, we're going to mean something.
Yeah, we all have, you know, we have, you know, belief in it, but right, but that's not, but we can't come in. Yeah. I think that the mindset, right, you know, has to be the exploration and the play. You know, now
we're in a sandbox, so we're still in like this.
We're in the sandbox. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Okay. Well, I better go eat dinner.
Yep, you go. I've got more meetings. Yeah, things are picking up pace on the production side. So yeah, let's keep organizing. Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Well, let's do this. You know, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer to me. And you know, and then as far as state of the DAO, you know, if Dominic can, you know, can get, you know, rolling with that, and you're right. I mean, I think that all sounds great. So let's just keep in touch about it.
I'll start driving that a little bit and working with him. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, we'll talk soon. So yeah, I guess you should set up another meeting now that you've been voted in with your sort of internal team, you know, to go through like potential executions to like really start to like wow them with our performance ability. you know.
Yeah.
And wait for the opportunity to show, and I think it's time that we can start to show.
Yeah, and they're ready. They, you know, they want it, they need it, and yeah,
Need it.
yeah.
All right,
All right, man.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.